So this is assignment 1. And so as you can see, you will have a link to install Python 3. You can simply click here, take you to the tutorial, and it will be a step-by-step guide depending on what system you're using, Linux, Ubuntu, you name it, they probably have an option here for you. So for example, I have Mac OS currently running and I use those steps to install, right? But if you have, let's say, a Windows system, you can follow these steps over here. If you're not able to get set up, as someone mentioned in chat, stay on this call. After class, we can try to figure out why it's not working for you. So that is as far as we're concerned for this part of the assignment. So yeah, so there's also video tutorials about how you can do this. So I will let you go through that. And if you have any problems, either stay after today's class or after the next lecture, and I will help you out, right? So the another thing you'll need is the PyCharm IDE, as I said in last class, and I was saying you can use other IDEs, but I do not have as much experience, and I would recommend you to use PyCharm as well, right? So now let's open PyCharm, and let's see what PyCharm is all about. All right, so when you open PyCharm, you will see something like this, right? This is the main function. Oh, sorry. So this is something I had opened earlier. Let's open another PyCharm window. Okay, so sorry about that. So this is probably something closer to what you'll see on the first startup. So what you want to do is you want to go to new project, right? Oh, let me make sure I'm recording this. Okay, yes, we are recording. So here we can do Python project. You can name it whatever you want, right? This last part will decide what the name is. So that will be the name of your project. And you can choose whatever location you want. So for this, let's just create. Now you will see there'll be some lines of code here already. Can you see my screen?
We can't see the screen again.
Oh, okay. Now can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So as we can see now, this is something you will see on startup. You can simply get rid of all this code. So for the simplest piece of code, as we have seen here, we can simply write print and then let's say hello. Right? This is probably the simplest piece of code you can write. When you press run, it will bring up the terminal, and in the terminal window, we will see hello printed out. Does anybody have any doubts about how we can get this hello over here? Okay, I do not see anything. As and when you have doubts, please feel free to put them in chat or unmute yourself to ask. Okay, so moving on. Sorry?
I have to worry. I thought you were doing it and we'll be seeing it from here, but I can't really place my hand on it. I can't really see what you are doing.
You can't see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can see the screen from here.
Can everybody confirm that they can't see the screen in chat? So some people can see the screen. Is it not clear? Is that the problem? Okay, so looks like you might be having some internet troubles. I would recommend joining audio with the phone numbers that I had provided. Maybe that could help you. You will see an option to join audio via dial-in instead of Wi-Fi. That could help some of the load on your internet. So moving on for now, right? And can you explain what happens in the background when hello is printed? Okay, so there's a lot of theory about what could actually happen. That's a very interesting question. So what actually happens is this will be converted into something that is called machine language, right? And then the machine can use that machine language and turn that into binary. And then that binary code is used actually to give us this output out here. So it will be converted back to that binary, then that binary will somehow convert back to machine language, which will instruct this terminal over here to give us this hello. So it is quite complicated, but all you need to know is that when you write print hello over here, you can see the output for it down here. I have load shedding in my area. So yes, you can watch the recording once it will be posted. I should have it posted by the end of tomorrow at the latest. So let's move on to today's lecture and to some of today's actual material. And we can start making sense of some actual code. So welcome everybody to our second lecture and first topic, which is data types, variables, and operators in Python. You will see David's name down here. That was the lecturer before me who made the presentation. And I just wanted to give him the credit for that. So after we go in, the first type of data type we have is strings. So strings are the most basic type. We've already seen one example of it when we wrote the word hello in quotation marks. So anytime you write something in quotation marks, it is a string, basically. So you can write it in three types of ways, right? So the first way is to write it in single quotation marks, as it's done over here. So let me, this is the single quotation mark, right? So then we can see double quotation marks over here. And then triple double quotation marks over here and triple quotation marks over here. So all three of these do the exact same thing and they allow us to write strings. This one is a little special. We will see why later on, and maybe you can find out on your own after this lecture. But for today, you can treat them as the same, right? So moving on from that. So we've already seen an example of this, so I won't show you an example of a string for now. Let's move on. Does anybody want me to show you an example of a string? Or does everybody get what a string is? It can be any piece of text, any number, anything inside two quotation marks.
You can show us an example.
Okay, let's see some examples, right? So we go back to PyCharm. So as we saw over here, this hello is in double quotation marks, right? So this is indeed a string. Yes, so what we can also do is we can put it inside what we call a variable, right? So I'm sure everybody here knows what a variable in math is. So we can say x, right? We call x as a variable, and we give it a value of a string. Let's say we call it hello class, right? Now what we can do is we can do print x, and it will simply print out what x represents, what x actually is, which is hello class. So when we run this, it first prints out hello, which we wrote over here, right? Then it goes over here, sets the value of x as hello class, and then we can print x out, right? That is what happens over here. So it only shows us an output when we do print, but this piece of code is also run. It runs in order. So the first line of code is run first, then the second line, then the third line, and so on. Does this make sense to everyone? Why we have both of these printed over here and why it is in this order?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I think everybody
Yes. Yes.
on this.
Yes.
Okay. So another way we can write strings is we use single quotation marks, right? Another way we learned is we use triple quotation marks. And we can use triple double quotation marks. But when we print these out, you will see it is the exact thing. It is printing out the same exact string again and again because it is the same exact string just being put in different quotation marks. Okay. So your homework here is to tell me why these Z and W strings are special. You have to find out why the triple quotation marks are special than just single ones. I will let you know next class, but whoever tells me next class before me, you know, I'll appreciate it. So moving on to our presentation. Okay. We have numbers. So numbers, as you can probably imagine, they're numbers, right? So integers, as we learned in math, are simply whole numbers. This is inaccurate. Integers are not whole numbers. Whole numbers start from 0, right? We also want to include negative numbers. So when I send out this presentation, I will correct this, but integers basically include all numbers which are full, right? Like 1, 2, 3. You can't have fractional values in them. They can be negative, positive, 0. Then we have float point values. These will have the various decimal place values in this, right? So for this, we have a built-in function called float. For integers, we have a built-in function called int. We also have complex or imaginary numbers, which brings in your iotas and your negative square roots. But we won't really be going very deep into those, but you can know that those exist as well, right? So now we're going to go back to PyCharm, see some examples. So we have 1, right? What is 1? 1 is an integer, right? We can also do 1.0 or 1.0. These are the same values, but when you save them, the first one gets saved as an integer, the second one gets saved as a float, simply because you provided it the extra decimal specification, right? So when we add them, so you can see this very clearly if we do something real quick, right? So let's make z equals, let's say -2, and we do print, say x plus y, right? So when you do x plus y, it gives you 2, but it gives you 2.0, which is a float point value. But something interesting happens when you add up only integer values, right? So what if we do x plus z? This gives us -1, but you will notice that there's no 0.0 after this. This is because this is still an integer because it's using 2 integer values here. In this first one, we had one float point value, and just having one float point value simply changes the entire equation. It makes the product that we will get into an integer, into a float point value, sorry. So do we understand the difference between a float point value and an integer, and how it uses one and the other?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I think everybody understands. Still not clear. Oh, so I think I forgot to see Samson had some doubt. Samson, can you tell me exactly what you didn't understand? I want to be sure we're clear on everything. These are the very basic topics. If you have a doubt, it could be possible that someone else had the same doubt.
My worry,
Sorry?
my worry was a situation where I never knew how we are taking. Is it we are taking first the PyCharm or the Python to work with it? I was confused. We don't know taking first because I downloaded the tool, but now when you started, I was lost in between the session. I never knew if you are taking by the Python to work with or you are using by the PyCharm. I thought the Python is the main focus, while the PyCharm is like the built in
Yeah,
behind that support it.
So Python is a language, right? And PyCharm is an IDE. So an IDE basically allows us to write in a language. So PyCharm we are using to write in Python. So the code we are writing in here is Python.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So it mean you are working on the Python, but as you are working on it, then it therefore give us a real validation on PyCharm.
Yes, so you can kind of think of it as if you use Netflix to watch a movie, right?
Yes,
you're
sir.
you're watching that movie, but you're also using Netflix at the same time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I got confused at the point of using the hello world and moving to XD. So that was simply okay. So Bonkung, we are hearing something from your audio. Please mute yourself. Bonkung, please mute yourself. I do not want to kick anybody else out today. Okay. Hopefully they join back and they're muted this time. So moving on, we have, so yes, we were discussing why we used X and Y, right? So I was simply trying to show that we can use variables to store strings as well, not just numbers. So we can simply just do this. So what I was trying to show was that in Python, a variable does not need to be a number. It can be pretty much anything. We can use any data type to be stored in a variable. That was the basic idea behind me showing you this. So let's go back to the presentation. What is the difference between the language here and the one on Visual Code? So there is no difference. You can use Visual Studio Code. I do use it sometimes in my free time, so I might be able to help, but just for the sake of simplicity and so that everyone in the class is on the same standard, I would like you to use PyCharm, but again, I won't have a problem if you use Visual Studio Code to do your assignments. Okay, so moving on from numbers, we have Booleans. So what are Booleans? Booleans are binary values. They can either be true or false, or as we can say 0 or 1, right? So the built-in function for this is bool. We don't really use these built-in functions a lot, but still good to know. So some examples of this can be true, false, obviously. Then we have 5 greater than 6. Why is this a Boolean value? Well, because a statement about something being greater or less can either be true or false, right? So 5 less than 6, this is false, and false is a Boolean value. Similarly, so if we are equating something to something, so x equals y. So for now, just know that this means that we're checking if x and y are equal. Now notice the difference between what I used over here. So here we used x is equal to 1. This is assignment, right? So the difference here is, let's see. Right? This is what was written in the other statement. So you'll notice here that we have 2 equal signs, right? Sorry. Okay, so you will notice that we have 2 equal signs, right? So this is to check if x and y are equal. But if we only have 1 equal to sign, that is to assign. That means we are telling y that you have this value. But if we have 2 equal signs, that means we're checking if they're equal. I will tell you more about this when we go on to operators, but for now, you can simply know that there's a difference between the two, right? So someone asked me, does it matter if you install Python 3.11 or 3.8? It shouldn't matter, but I would suggest that you install the Python version, the latest Python version that you can, just to stay on top of the latest changes, but it shouldn't be a problem. So let's see some examples of Boolean values in action, right? Let's make x equals 5, y equals 7. We do print x is greater than 7. Oh, x is greater than y, right? So now if we run this, we get false, right? Because x is not greater than y, right? Pretty simple. Now we do x less than y, we'll get true because x is less than y. Now if we change the value of x, so now if I do this, what happens is the value of x changes. Now if I do print again, x less than y, right? Now if I run this, it is still true. Oh, sorry, I should change it to something greater. Let's make it 8. Yeah, so as you can see now, it prints true first, which is over here. Because at this point, x was 5, right? And y was 7. So x was less than y. But over here, we changed x's value to 8. And then when we go down here again and we print x less than y, the value is now false, right? We can check for other things, right? So as we saw earlier, we can check for equality. Are they equal? This will be false, right? But if we do make them equal, this will no longer be false. So for example, x equals 7. And then we try this. Now this last one is true, which corresponds to this one over here, right? Because x is 7 and y is 7. Does everybody get why each of these values are being printed as they are? If there's any doubt, I can repeat it, any part of it, all of it.
I don't get, please.
Okay. So what we're trying to see here is the first most basic thing you want to know is that you are going line by line always. So what you want to do is in your mind, you just create kind of two blocks, right? Make two blocks. One has X, one has Y, right? We just make two blocks in our mental, in our head, right? Now what we do is we go to line number 1. Okay, so line number 1, X equals 5. All right, we put it in here. We go to line 2. Okay, Y is equal to 7. Cool. Now we go to line 3. Print X less than Y. So let's make an output in our head as well, right? So print X less than Y. Is 5 less than Y? Well, yeah. So we true. Right? Now we go to line 4. X is now 8. So we change the value to 8. Now we go to line 5. We have to print out, is X less than Y? Well, is 8 less than 7? No. We do false. Right? Now we go to line 6. Is X and Y equal? No. So we again do false. Okay. Then we go to line number 7. X equals 7. So we change X to 7. Now we go to line 8. X equals to Y. Is 7 and 7 equal? Yep. So we put true. And this is the output we get over here. Is that clear?
Perfectly
Yes,
clear. Thank you.
very clear. Very clear.
Perfect. Awesome. Now, okay. Is there any more?
Yeah, I wanted to get an understanding for maybe easy understanding of these things. For example, where we have 1, X is equal to 5, that's one string. Then if we go to 2, Y is equal to 7, that's another string.
So
Right.
one small correction, that those are not strings, those are integers, right?
Yeah, okay, the numbers are integers, but I wanted to understand when you say the string, is it when you try to say the first line is string number 1, second line is string number 2, third line is string number 3. So my question was, the moment if you write print, does that mean it closes the other lines which are on top of it? Because when you changed X is equal to 8, it was just giving us other information in terms of false and true. So I wanted to find out if the moment you write print, it closes the other lines, which are strings, I think so.
I'm not sure I understand your question. So each line is not a string. A string will only be in quotation marks, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's just a number, it's just an integer or float, something like that.
Yeah, right. So this is X is a variable here. The equal to sign is an operator. The 5 is an integer, right? So a string is when, for example, I can even put this in quotation marks. So let's say over here, I do this. This will be a string, right? X suddenly now becomes a string. And if I try to run this, we'll get all sorts of errors, right? Because we are trying to compare a string and an integer, and we just can't do that.
All right.
Because technically we can make this also a string, which doesn't really mean anything. And now there's no point in comparing it, right? So that's why we want to differentiate between numbers and strings. And that's why we don't put quotation marks for numbers.
So okay. if it's in quotation marks, it's a string.
Right.
If it's not in quotation marks, then it's called.
Then it can be pretty much anything else, right? It can be a number, as we saw here. It can be an integer, right? If we had 0.0 over here, it could have been a float point number, right? And as we saw over here, X less than Y is a Boolean, right?
Oh, okay. So for the Boolean, you mean Boolean? He said Boolean, yeah. That one comes if you're trying to prove if something is true or false.
Right. Boolean is always a binary value. It will be either true or false.
Oh, okay. But if you're adding, for example, if you did x plus y, then it's just a normal code. If you say, for example, this one say print x plus y, that's
Right.
not a Boolean.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. My PC is
Right.
making weird noises. Okay. Sorry. You were saying?
Yeah. So I was saying, if you say print x plus y, that's not Boolean.
That's not a Boolean, no. So even in this, only x less than y is a Boolean. This in itself is a function, right? We will learn about functions later, but print is a function and it's printing out this Boolean value. And even this Boolean value has parts in it, right? X is a variable, this less than is an operator, right? So strings are in quotations and numbers aren't. So that is one of the differences. But again, strings can be anything, right? You can have alphabets in there, you can have punctuation marks in there, you can have numbers, spaces, all sorts of things. But numbers can only be numbers, right? You can only have either 5, 7, 6.3, something. So it has to be a number. So we go back to our presentation, right? So
Just one clarification.
okay.
When the x is equal to 5, that means you are just assigning x to have the value of 5.
Right.
So x, you said, was a variable. The equal sign means you are assigning it to that number.
Right.
All right.
We will learn in this lecture itself that the equal to sign over there is an operator, and an operator helps us to do things to two different types, like two data types, right? We have variable on one side and we have another data type on the right side, and we can use an operator in between.
All right, thanks.
As we also saw the plus sign, right? The plus sign is also an operator. So we're moving on, we have variables, right? So we've already seen some variables, right? And we declare a variable using the equals operator. Okay, so these are containers for storing data values. So as we learned, there are 3 types of data values: strings, we have numbers, and we have Boolean values, right? All 3 of these can be put inside a variable, as we can see in these examples over here. So we can name a variable called greeting and then equals hello world. Hello world here is a string because it is in single quotation marks, right? S string necessary. I'm not sure what that question means. If you are asking if we'll ever use strings, definitely we'll have to use strings a lot in Python. So x equals 5, y equals 12. This is simply assigning numbers to variables, right? Then we have another variable called yes underscore no. And for this, we have assigned the value x less than y, which is a Boolean value, right? And then we can also just use the functions that we had seen, right? The bool function, but this will simply assign it. I think false is the default value. We can find out. So let's look at variables a little bit more. So as we already saw, we can give it a integer value, we can give it a float point value, we can give it Boolean value, we can give it any value we want. We can also, another important thing that you might have noticed is a variable can have a long name. It's not like math where you only need one alphabet. So you can call a variable, let's say, greater. You could have greater as a variable, and then if you print greater, it will print out false, right? Because the value of greater is what will be printed out, not greater itself. That's the point of variables. They act as a substitute for what they hold, right? And as you can see, we can use variables to assign values to other variables as well. So we, instead of doing y equals 1.5, we can also do y equals x, and then it will simply just have the value 1. What is the difference when you print a number as a string versus on its own? There is no difference as such. The only difference I can think of is it's just shorter inside the print bracket, right? Other than that, it will do the exact same thing. It is taking that exact string. Yeah, you can certainly use the variable name less over here if you want to. Yeah, that's the beauty of variable names. It is recommended to make them as useful to you and as descriptive to you as possible, right? You want to use variable names that are descriptive. So we have, when do we use strings, booleans, and variables? Okay, so strings can be used in a variety of tasks, right? We want to communicate something to the other person, right? Strings can also be used to capture data from a user. For example, they provide us some numbers, but it also has spaces. So we take it as a string, we remove the spaces, we convert it to a number, and then we can use that value. Yes, so we can print less, that will be false. I can try that out as well. And as I was saying, we use Boolean values for, as we can see, we can check if something is greater than something, if something is less than something. We can, as we'll see further down the line, we can also check various things. For example, if two strings are equal, if there are certain characteristics between two strings that are similar, we can use it to hold a variety of information, right? Then what was the third thing you asked? Variables. So variables will be used a lot. Variables are probably going to be used the most. You just can't code without variables. It's the most important thing because that is what you will use to store information. You don't want to write, for example, let's say we are making a program about a square, right? So instead of like remembering what this length of that side is, so for example, let's say I want to make print area, right? So what is the area of a square? We have side times side, right? So let's say our side length is 2, we do 2 times 2, right? What we can also do is we do perimeter. And the perimeter will be 4 times 2, right? Now, if suddenly I want to change the length of my side, I have to change this 2 3 times, right? Whereas if I simply had a variable on top called side, and I gave it the value 2, now instead of changing the 2 3 times, all I need to do is just change the length of the side over here, and it will help us calculate the area and perimeter every time, right? We only need to change the value once now. The number of variables you will use usually will decrease the amount of work you have to do. Right? We can go 7. Right? Does this make sense to everyone? Is this clear?
So please take it over again.
Sorry?
Can you please take it over again, please, if you don't mind?
Your voice is cutting out a lot. Could you type your question in chat? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. As soon as the question pops up, I'll answer it. Until
Okay,
then,
just after you did print, it's only showing the area which is 49 and the perimeter. What about the one that is in the black on line number 3? Side times side, it's not showing anything, I think.
it is showing something, right? This is the side times side. 7 times 7 is 49, right?
Ah, okay. Okay, so it means the one that you said print is just showing it's the one that brings the,
Sorry.
when you say print area, it's the one that is showing down on the small, in the box of run. I think the box that is below, it says area is equal to 49. So it means side by side, it was multiplying 7 times 7.
Right.
And then you say print 4 times side, it means 4 times 7. That's why I have 28.
Right. Yep. So I can,
okay.
I'll make this more clear, right? So side is a variable, right? These are strings. Every time you see green, that's a string. That if you see closely, these have like quotation marks, right?
Yeah.
So this is being printed as it is because it is a string, right? This is not being printed as it is because these are variables being multiplied. So the star here multiplies two numbers. We'll learn about this later on, but a star is basically a multiplication sign because we can't write X because that is an alphabet and we can use it as a variable, right? So we use a star instead.
Yes, clear now.
Okay, so we have a question. What is the function of the colon and how are we going to indicate if we meant area of a circle? Okay, the colon is just for show, just so I can have a colon over here. That's literally the only reason. You can remove it if you want. Won't really make a difference. So yeah, that's the reason for the colon. And what was the other question? And how do we make the area of a circle? Yeah, I can show you that as well, certainly. So what we can do is instead of side, we'll need radius, right? And now who can tell me the area for a circle? It's pi r square, right? And then r square, we have radius. Right? And then perimeter or circumference, we have 2 pi r. So 2 times pi times r. We can also make pi a variable. That would be smart over here, right? You could make the value of pi more precise or more lax and see the result, right? You can see 3.14, we have this result. We can check for 1415. You can keep going. Is that clear?
Yes, thanks.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's clear. It's clear.
So let's move back to the presentation. We have variables. We've done variables. Moving on, we have arithmetic operators. So we've already seen addition. We've already seen multiplication. So let's look at the other ones. We have subtraction. We have division. We have modulus. We have exponentiation. And we have floor division. Now, here we have a lot of interesting situations. So let's go back to PyCharm, okay? So subtraction is easy. Let's get that out of the way. Do print x minus y. If we print this, it will simply subtract it, right? X minus y is 1. Now, when it gets interesting is if we divide over here, we get 1.333. Now you'll see the division is the only time when even if you use two integers, you can end up with a floating point value. That's what makes it interesting. In any other type of operation like addition, right, for example, you'll get only an integer. Even multiplication, you'll get an integer. But as soon as you switch to division, there is a chance that you will get a float point number. So always keep this in mind. Now we look at some of the other different ones. So we have this modulus operator. Anybody want to take a guess about what this might do? No guesses?
Yes.
Percentage.
What will it do? Yeah, I heard a yes.
Yes, yeah. I think modulus is when you divide a variable and the outcome becomes
Sorry?
the remainder becomes, as in when you divide a variable, when you take a division and the remainder becomes 0.
Yeah, so what it does is it basically divides, but it gives you the remainder actually. So it gives you 1, which is the remainder here. So let's change it a little bit so you can see it more clearly. Let's make it something like 76. I don't know. Yeah, so here you can see this is the remainder. So this basically gives you the remainder after long division, right? So an easy visualization for this can be 76, 3, 2, 6, 1, 16, 5, right? We get the remainder 1. Make sense? All right. Next, we have, what did we have? Let's see, exponentiation. So this is also quite straightforward. It takes it to the power of the second one, right? So if we do 2 to the power 3, this will be 8, right? Because it's multiplying 2 with itself 3 times, right? That's exponentiation. Basically, this means x to the power y. Is everyone clear on exponentiation?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, we also have floor division. Sorry, I forgot that one. So what floor division does is, we notice that when we do this, we get a floating point number, right? And sometimes that's just, I just don't like that. I don't like it. I want a whole number. I like whole numbers. So what I can do is, instead of trying to get these points over here, you just give it 2 slashes. It does a floor division. So it will give you only the whole number and just cut out the remainder. This is useful in very rare circumstances, but when it is useful, it can be very useful. Okay, moving on. We have the assignment operators. So we have looked at the first assignment operators, which simply gives it that value, right? So x equals 5, it will give the value of 5 to x.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yep.
Sorry, on that floor division.
Okay, I can read
what?
that. I think somebody else also didn't understand. I'll just go through floor division again.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So this is what we were doing, right? So let's make it a bigger number again for better visualization. Right. So we have 25 over here, right? So let's look at the long division again. You know, 2, 6, right? We get 16. We have 5, we have 15, and then we have 1 left. So what happens in normal division is you just keep going, right? You divide this by 3, you give it a 0, you know, 0.333. You'll just keep going, right? But what we do with floor division is we just stop over here, right? We won't do this. We won't do this. Just stop over here. We chuck out the remainder and we just send this value back.
Okay, so in an event that maybe it's the answer is that 25.6, does it round it off to the nearest whole number? 26.
It doesn't round it off. So let's look at another example. So what if we change it? Let's say we change it to 70. Let's say 77. Now the answer is still 25, but if you'll see, if we do the long division, oh, we have 17, and then again we get 15, and then here's 2, right? So now this will be 25.66, but it still gives us the answer of 25. So it's simply cutting off this part. It's not rounding it up. It's cutting off this part. Does that make sense? It's flooring it. We call it flooring, right? So let's think of it this way, right? Let me show you. You have 25, right? Sorry, you have 26, the number 26. You have the number 25. Think of 26 as the ceiling and 25 as the floor, right? If we have anything in between over here, we are flooring it. That's what we're doing. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let's see. What do we have in chat? We have. Okay. So now we have the assignment operators, right? So we have already done the equal to operator. It simply gives X that value. Now we'll see there are a bunch of other operators as well. So we can use plus equals. So what this does is, for this to be used, X already needs to be established. It already needs to be a variable. So now what we can do is, let's go back to our PyCharm window, right? We call x1, we print x. This will give us 1, right? Now, if we do x plus equals, so this is the same as saying, if I said x equals x plus 2, it would have been the same thing, okay? So now that I've told you that this would have been the same thing as this, what do you think the output would be if I ran this? So like, what would be the value of x now after this? If I did another print, let's say over here.
3.
3, right? Yeah, makes sense.
2.
Does this make sense to everybody? Why this is 3? If anybody is unclear, put it in chat. Even if you're one person, doesn't matter. I want to repeat it for you.
It's not clear to
So
me,
please take
please.
it over again for me.
Sorry?
It's not very clear, sir.
Again, I think your mic is not clear or something. I'm not able to hear you properly. If you can put it in chat. Okay, so more people need more explanation. I'll explain it more. So let's say instead of writing this, we did write what I said it's the same as, right? I said it's the same as this value. Forget about the previous value, right? Let's just focus on this value for now. So x is equal to x plus 2. Now, if you were doing maths, your math teacher will probably kick you out, right? Like, what is this? So don't be scared in math. In computer science, this is a completely fair statement. So what this means is, I'm hearing sound. Taki, can you please mute yourself, please? Okay, I got it. Okay, thank you. Moving on. So we have x equals x plus 2, right? So let's go back to our initial way of doing things, right? Where I said you take each line and you make boxes, right? So we have only one variable. So we make one box called x. We go to the first line, right? First line, x is 1. Then we are printing x. So we have the output window over here and we print out 1, right? Now we move to line 4. So now this line says that x's value is now x plus 2. What this means is we want the value of x to be x plus 2. So what is x? X is 1. So what is 1 plus 2? 1 plus 2 is 3. So this will be 3. So now when we go to line number 5 and we print it, we print 3. Does this make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so moving on, we can go back to, now this statement can be rewritten as x plus equals, that's all we were saying, right? So what you can think of is that when we write plus equals, it simply means take the thing on the right side and add it to this thing. And then that is your final value. So if you, in a similar way, right, let me clear this. If you, now we can do minus, right? So anybody want to take guesses on what the value of x will be in the second line now?
It's -1.
-1, okay, yep. You can throw your guesses in chat, like bombard me. Go. -1, everybody agrees? If you agree, just type -1. So we have a +1 in there. Okay, let's see, right? So we have a -1. So again, this is because you can simply think of it this way, right? So you take x, you take the operator. Oh. Sorry. So you take x, then you take the operator, and then you take the third value. You put them all together, and then you put them back in x. That's the entire idea, right? So if similarly I put this, what do you think the value will be now? Bombard me in the chat again. So I see some people saying 2. Yeah, everybody thinks it's 2, right? Yeah, because you run this and it will give us 2, right? Then similarly, we can have this as well. Again, let's do it one last time. Bombard me with the answer. So we have 1 by 2, 0.5, 0.5. All right, so we have like a few different answers here. So let's try to run it, right? So we get 0.5. So as we learned earlier, there's only really two ways to represent numbers, right? There's integers and there's floating point numbers. So whenever you get an answer in Python, it won't be in a fraction, it will be in a floating point number. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation now. Right, so yeah, you can see we can use all of the operators in this way, right? I will recommend you to try the last three yourself at home. If you have any problems, if you have any doubts, let me know. So these are also more assignment operators. These I won't necessarily say you'll have to ever use. You can just look at these, know that these exist, but I don't think you will need them for any of the assignments that are coming up. So now we come to the comparison operators, okay? So we've already looked at like three of these, right? So we've looked at the equal to operator, which checks if two things are equal. We've looked at the greater than operator, and we've looked at the less than operator, right? Now, one common thing about all the comparison operators is that the answer that they will give is always a Boolean value. It will always either be true or false, right? So now you can see that we have not equal to, we have greater than or equal to, we have less than or equal to. So somebody asked me in chat, so I will be sending this presentation to you with the link to the YouTube video. So these, again, I will tell you to try on your own because we've already done three of these, and I think everyone was pretty clear on what the comparison operators are doing, unless you want me to go through these in detail. Anybody here think that they won't know what comparison operators would do? That's completely fine. I can do it for you. Okay, I don't see anything in chat, so I'm going to assume everyone understood when we were using greater than, less than, equal to, right? Now we have our logical operators. So this will be quite new if you've never heard of Boolean logic before. So now let's go back to our presentation. Oh, sorry, our PyCharm window. Now we can see that there are like a lot of ways we can use Boolean values, right? So let's make two to three Boolean values randomly. So let's make one called less than 2, 1 less than 2, greater than. Right, so we can see these are three Boolean values. Now we can all obviously tell what the value of each of these is as well. Right, so this will be true. This will be false. This will also be false. So this part of the text that you're seeing, this is called a comment. You can add a comment by using the hash symbol, right? So anything you write after the hash symbol, the Python code will simply ignore, and that is for your own reference. That is for your own documentation. I always recommend writing as many comments as you can. That helps you make your code more readable. It helps you also when you come back to your own code to tell what exactly that code was doing. So now when we look at these three variables, right? We can have Boolean values sort of interact in all of these ways. So let's look at some of those, right? So like print less than or so now who wants to guess what the outcome for this would be? Any guesses? Okay, so I'm seeing no guesses. Let's try it out, right? So we get true over here, right? So let's look more deeply into why this is. So when we look at logical operators, there is two things you want, right? There's the or, there's the and there's the not. Sorry, three things, right? So for the or, you need two conditions, right? It's A or B, right? Now for these two conditions, we can make a what is called a truth table, right? So in this truth table, we have A is true, A is false, we have B is true, we have B is false. So in English, we use the word or when we want to say that either this or this, right? So when we're using the operator or, what happens is even if one of the values is true, all of the values, like the entire thing becomes true, right? So for example, we have A is true and B is true, then that means A or B is true, right? We have A is false, B is true, because as I said, one is true, then or becomes true, right? So we have true. Similarly, when A is true and B is false, we also have true. But when both of these are false, we have false. Okay. Is everybody clear on the truth table for or? Is my handwriting clear?
Can you please repeat that?
Okay, yeah. So all I'm trying to say here is let's just make a new window for this. Right. So over here, let's do it again, right? So we have or. So now we have A, right? We have a condition A and we have a condition B, right? Now these two can either be true or false, right? So I make what is called a truth table because there will be four conditions, right? So we're trying to check the value of A or B. And A can have the values true and false, B can have the values true and false. That gives us four cases, right? Because A can be true, A can be false, and B can be true, B can be false. And this gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 cases. Does it make sense how we have 4 cases before I even fill this out? The person who had the doubt, is this part clear?
Yes.
Like we have 4 conditions, right? Okay. So now we see A or B, right? So when A is true and B is true, we have A or B is true. When B is false and A is true, as I said, even when only one is true, that is enough to make the entire OR condition true. So when A is true and B is false, we have true. Similarly, when B is true and A is false, we also have true, because we only need one true statement to make an entire OR statement true. Then when both of them are false, finally, we will get a false value. Now in the AND condition, right? The AND logical operator, it is completely the opposite case, right? In the AND condition, both the statements absolutely need to be true. Even if one is false, the entire thing becomes false. So again, we will have 4 cases because we are checking if A and B, we are checking the value of this. So again, we'll make the table. We have A is true, A is false, we have B is true, B is false, right? So when both are true, only then it is false. Otherwise, it is always false, right? Because even when one is false, the entire thing becomes false. Is the difference between and or clear?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes.
clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have the not operator. The not is very simple. You have one statement A, right? You put a not in front of it, it becomes its opposite. So if A is true, it becomes false. Not A will become false. If A is false, not A is true. Pretty simple, right? I think that should be clear to everyone. Then we have is and is not. So this will return true if both objects are the same. Now, this is different than the equal to operator. There is one very key difference here that I will show you, right? All right, so let's say we have one equal to one, one. Both of these will be true, right? Now here you also see that there's a warning. It will give you a warning if you use is with something that is not a variable, right? Because it is meant to be used with objects. So now when we want to see the difference, we'll actually make variables. So let's make variables, right? Let's say x equal 1, y equal 1.0, w equals x, right? Now, if we do print x equal to y, right? This is true. Right? W is a variable, right? X, it will take x's value. So when we do print x equal to y, this comes out as true. Why is this true? Because x and y have the same value, even though they're of a different type. Y here is a float type and x here is an integer type. But both of these still are the same exact value. But when we try to do this, it will be false because they're of different types. Y is a floating point value, right? And x is an integer. So they're not the same exact object, even though they're equal in value. Does this make sense to everyone?
Yes, it
Makes
does.
sense.
Yes. Sure. Yes.
Okay. So let's see some more examples to help clear out some edge cases in your. This will obviously be true, right? Because they are the same exact thing. Now this one, even I don't remember what the answer will be. So it is true. So when two objects are identical, right, they still say true. But if they're equal but not identical, then it says false. That is the consensus here. So let's go back to the presentation. I believe we should be done. Okay, we have bitwise operators. Again, these I'm hearing somebody, but
Stop playing with me.
Umo, I don't really hear your question. I think your voice is cutting off. Can you please put your question in chat? Okay, so these bitwise operators, these won't really be used. You need to just know that these exist. They're used to do very base level programming when we use bit values and we're using signed integers. You do not need to Saki or iPhone. Okay, I'll just mute you. Okay. So yeah, so this is the end of today's lecture. I will be sending you this this presentation, and you can look at these links to find out more about all the data types and all the operators and variables. Right? Do you have any questions from the class today before I start introducing assignment 2?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Said before you start introducing assignment 2, which one is assignment 1? In case I joined late, so I don't know if there was an assignment given.
I hear some noise in your background. Could you please type it in chat, your question? Sorry.
Please, is there anything like declaration on Python?
Sorry?
Is there anything like variable declaration that's declaring variable before?
What kind? Your voice is cutting off. Maybe it's my internet that might be a little off here. If you can type your question in chat, I'll be able to better answer.
I was asking, am I clear now?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. You said before you mentioned assignment 2. So I was asking, is there assignment number 1? I joined late because of my internet, so I don't know if maybe you give out an assignment.
Yes, so I sent the assignment before class, and I also introduced the assignment today. I recorded the part where I introduced the assignment, so you can view that tomorrow, right? Both of these assignments will be due next Saturday, so you'll have plenty of time to go through them.
All right, so the video will be...
assignment is simply installing PyCharm and installing Python. That is assignment 1. There's nothing else there.
Oh, okay, I've already installed that. So I'm waiting for assignment 2 now.
Right. And yes, one thing about assignment 1 that I want to add is that for submission of assignment 1, you need to provide me with a screenshot of PyCharm IDE just set up and you printing out hello. That is the submission for the first assignment, because in the first assignment, you're simply going to download PyCharm. And that is my way of knowing that you've done it. And if you're using any other IDE, I want you to do the same in that IDE. Just print out hello and show me that you can do it, right?
So for the videos, are you going to send it on through the email, or maybe it will be on YouTube? Because some of us came in, it's on to follow it from the beginning.
Yes, so I will be sending the video lecture link. It will be a YouTube link. I will send it out tomorrow.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, I don't actually have...
Your voice is cutting off. Could you please type in chat?
From beginning of the class, I sent a chat thing. So I was that leaders okay. No, sorry.
Sorry, I still can't hear you. Your voice is really stretching out.
Hi, can you hear me now? I think I'm speaking clear now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I said at the beginning of the class, I had difficulty installing on my system, and I don't know if after the class I can share my screen with you and you see where I'm having the challenge.
Okay, let me just pause my recording over here. All right, so I'm resuming recording here. Let me just open up assignment 2. Sorry, it's taking a second. All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
So for your second assignment and your first actual assignment, you will be doing a financial state calculation. So what I want you to do for this is, your client wants a program to generate a basic financial report that users can regularly run to understand their current financial state. This program should be able to store in variables the username. So all of these need to be put in separate variables. So your first task should be to make a variable for each of these, right? When run, the program should do this, right? So it should hello and then user's name. It should use that. So wherever you see like angular brackets over here, what we want you to do is, instead of printing out this, we want you to print out what you've stored here in the variable. Okay. So we want you to print out everything like this using those variables. So for extra credit, you can also do this, include this part of the statement as well. It should be pretty straightforward, and I won't be answering any questions right now. And you'll have all the necessary formulas over here, right? So what I'll do is, I won't answer any questions right now. I want you to give it a genuine attempt. I want you to stress out a little bit. It will be hard at first, but I really want you guys to kind of get in the habit of doing that, because programming will be like this. You'll always be faced with mental blocks, and what you want to do is just keep trying to find a way to do it. So using the information I've given you, you should be able to use print statements and use variables to print out all of this, right? So I'm counting on all you guys, and I hope to see good assignments. If you're not able to complete by next Saturday, I won't deduct any points, but I do need to see a genuine attempt, and I will only take assignments after next Saturday if you've made a genuine attempt and you're asking me the right questions. If you're coming to me and, okay, this is not working, how do I do this, right? Okay, so someone is asking me, how do I submit assignment 1? So for assignment 1, as I said, all you need to do is print hello world and then send me a screenshot of that, right? That's all you need to do. In your IDE, it should be printed out, hello world. For the second assignment, you will simply submit the Python file, right? The .py file that you will be making all the changes in. So if we go back to PyCharm, so in this, for example, we were making all our changes in this main.py file, right? So you will be sending me this exact file, or you can send me this folder zipped up. Is that clear? Yes, this will be through email. You will soon have a a teaching assistant. I will be keeping you updated on that. And you will be sending to her from in the future. But for the first 2 assignments, you can send it to me via email. All right, so I'll stop recording.